Hey all, it's David Ducker coming back at you, and today I'm going to be talking about pets, familiars, and animal companions in role-playing games. Now, this can also extend to mounts, and that's going to be my primary example because I haven't really played any characters with, pets, familiars, or animal companions. So I might not be the best authority on this, but I'm just going to give my ramble about it anyway. And my specific examples will be generally just focused towards my mounts I've had for player characters. But let's start out by outlining, exactly what I'm talking about. So this is when a character has a very close connection to an animal or sometimes to another character as well. So an example would be, a wizard who has a black cat who is actually their magical familiar, and they are kind of bonded with them. So you can see through the eyes of this cat. They start to perhaps take on characteristics of this animal companion. The cat starts to get more and more sapient and more intelligent as well as their bond grows, as they grow closer. This could also be something like an imp, which instructs the character on magic. In this case, it would be another speaking character. So you would have the option then to pass it off to the GM, which I'd probably recommend doing. Or failing an imp, which is generally horribly evil, could also be something like a sprite or even a baby dragon or some breed of miniature dragon, very popular. So that's basically what it is. Something you have a close connection with, and usually a magical connection. So pretty much as soon as you pick up on one of these characters, on a familiar, on an animal companion, you're not just playing your own character anymore. You're playing two characters. You're playing a tag team at that point. So you always kind of need to split your attention, divide your attention between these two entities that you control. One being, a sapient character, and one merely sentient. So it'll act very differently, but you're in charge of that alternate character as well, even though it's only of animal intelligence. So you need to keep track of, where it's moving, how it travels, what it eats, when it grooms. If it's playful, then you'll need to have your character interacting with it, helping it with all these tasks as well as playing with it, and perhaps even training it. If it's something like a wolf, where you might want to train it to attack or guard or shake a paw or whatever it may be. For me, I really like to get deep into one character. I don't like to split my attention, and that's one of the reasons I haven't played a character with a familiar previously, or an animal companion. If I brought one in, I'd probably lean towards a sapient one, like a fairy or an imp, and then just get the GM to take over as role-playing that character. And I think that could be a lot of fun, could add a lot to the game, another dynamic. It would complicate the GM's life very slightly, but not to a ridiculous degree. He's already in charge of a lot of characters. And usually these characters, companions, pets, are non-combat, usually. There are a few exceptions, and this is one of the problems you run into when people take certain of these, especially druids and rangers with animal companions. They tend to take them because it's an extra way to attack. It's just they take them purely for mechanical reasons. They forget to roleplay them, forget to feed them, forget to play with them, forget to groom them, forget to stable them or house them or transport them. But when combat rolls around, oh, you better believe they'll remember suddenly that they have a wolf animal companion or a bear or whatever they have. They'll suddenly remember as soon as they need an extra attack roll. This is, of course, power gaming. What I would call trash. That's what I'd call it. uh, this video is partially inspired, by the way, by Red Dice Diaries. My main man, John Large, from the United Kingdom, did a video on familiars. Probably better than this video will turn out to be. But it kind of inspired me, because I've always wanted to play a character with a familiar, especially a fairy or an imp. Those sapient familiars. But I've never really gotten around to it yet. So I'm just reiterating here that you're fully responsible for this pet. All those issues I mentioned: feeding, grooming, housing, training, playing with it, and even role playing with it to the degree that that it can. And it's a lot of responsibility to take on as a role player. I don't know if you get enough out of it, or I don't know if I'd get enough out of it to make it worthwhile, just because I'm so invested in one point of view, and I hate to split it. Some of you, that might be fine. You could play two just regular characters, and you'd be cool. It's just not my specific enjoyment out of the game as a player. So keep track of all those details. Remember the responsibility. Don't do it for power gaming reasons. I was in a terrible game, the worst game I ever played, and one of the players, Druid, had a companion, and I tried to role play with her, and I'm talking to her about her animal companion, and I asked her its name, and she just gives me this weird look, and she's just like, it's just an animal companion. And I'm like, you haven't named your pet? And she's like, no, it's a wolf. I just call it Wolf. And it was, you could do that in character and make an argument for not naming it, especially as a druid. You could say, well, it doesn't understand names, so I wouldn't just name it. But it was completely out of character that she just only had it for combat, and she didn't even bother to name it because it was only there for combat. And she used it as cannon fodder too. She's standing on a suicidal charge. I'm just like, oh, your beloved pet, no! And she's just like, oh, whatever, I can summon a new one in 1d2 days. She's looking at the rule book, and I'm just like, oh man, how cruel and heartless must your character be? But she wasn't in character. She's out of character. It's just a stat block, So that was, the least of the problems with that game. I mean, that game was stank. But don't be that guy. Don't show up with a stat block, not name your companion, not know what it looks like, not know what his favorite treat is or what tricks it does. So I'm going to come back and I'll use my my one possibly good example. Is I was playing as essentially as a paladin, and he had a mount, which is a light elven warhorse he called Bucephalus, and he was very, very attentive to Bucephalus. He took care of his saddle and his stabling, his feeding, his grooming. He'd brush Bucephalus and brush out his hair. And he talked to him, oh, you're so beautiful, Bucephalus. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're the prettiest horse. And he was somewhat of an effeminate elfin fop paladin. Huge amount of fun out of the character. And huge amount of fun out of Bucephalus as well. I mean, it really made it its own character. This horse with, this elaborate hairdo and ribbons in its hair. And I think he had, like, some ridiculous horseshoes as well that were, like, blessed and inscribed with runes. And, I described my Masterworks saddle, and I had to get another, I had another horse to carry all my gear, because I couldn't burden Bucephalus with it, because he was not a workhorse, he was a war horse, and he only bore men into battle. He didn't drag along camping supplies. So, I had a huge amount of fun with Bucephalus, and getting concerned when he was in battle, or if anyone threatened my horse, or that we couldn't escape from the town because I had to go back and rescue Bucephalus. I couldn't leave him behind. So I had a lot of fun with that. I mean, he wasn't even like a animal companion or a special mount or whatever they call it. He's just a horse. He had no magical attachment to me at all. But my character had so much sentimental attachment to him. And Bucephalus kind of developed his own personality about being this proud kind of prissy horse. A rider and his mount tend to start to look alike and act alike after a while, like I said. So being somewhat of a foppish elf and a braggart, Bucephalus is all full of pride and pomp and circumstance. So it's a tremendous amount of fun. Not something I had really originally thought of with the character. It just kind of developed naturally. Of course I named him, and I described what he looked like, but the connection that my character had to his horse really developed over time. And it was, in that sense, it was kind of a surprise to me that I got to develop this relationship on the whatever level you can, have a relationship with a non-sapient animal. But it was a lot of fun. It added a lot to my character and to the game. So I definitely encourage people to try that, explore that. There's so many different options for familiars, for animal companions, for pets. I love mounts. I love a lizard man riding on a giant Komodo dragon, or a goblin anti-paladin riding a dire bat, or elven eagle knight, or the more mysterious elven owl knights. I love animal companions in the sense of mounts, because they kind of, in combat you can team up, so you're not worrying about two separate characters. It's kind of the same character in combat functionally. In terms of your tactics, or you're moving together. So in that sense, it takes some of the burden off of me. But I definitely do look forward to trying a character with both a sapient familiar and also a non-sapient one. I have a concept for a goblin transmuter, and I might give him a bat familiar. Bats are somewhat sacred to goblins in my game. So that would be very interesting. Or a lizard folk, possibly a sorcerer, maybe a wizard with a snake, just a snake as her familiar. Could be a lot of fun. So I'd love to hear as well how you do familiars, pets, animal companions, how you do them well. What horrible stories you've seen, what ones you want to try out in the future. Just any thoughts that you have at all, any anecdotes, pop them down in the comments below. I love to read the comments, love to respond to them. And for right now, I'm going to be signing off. I hope you all have a good day. Cheers.